Hello, my name is Andreas. I'm part of the German podcast Der Übercast. In this screencast, I'd like to show you how I use Final Cut Pro 10 to produce not only our audio podcast, but also our video podcast. So what you see right now is how I get the files from Sven and Patrick when we're done recording. You see that I have usually 3 files per person. So there's like the video file, the audio file, and if I'm lucky, and in this case I am lucky, I have 3 backup recordings as well from each person. And this really helps later in the process, and also have this effects track as well. So let's start out. Sven is recording with a QuickTime player, and QuickTime, for some odd reason, when it records in maximum, saves its files as AIFC, and not a lot of players and converters can read that. So the quick fix is to rename it. And I got a converter here in Amadeus, which basically just writes out an Apple lossless file, and it has a couple of actions in it to make sure the audio file is in the right format. And all we do now is just drop it in here and wait for the conversion to finish. Now that is done, we can go into post haste. Here I've created a template for our project. In this case, I'm just calling it UC and XXX. This is just a placeholder name for this specific screencast, and I say create project. And after a short while, I have a new folder here inside this how to podcast with FFmpeg folder _backup, and I've got the Final Cut Pro bundle. Now usually I just go ahead and move everything to this backup folder, and because we don't need the AIF file anymore, I just delete it normally because the conversion just takes care of everything. Now we can go into Final Cut Pro. In Final Cut Pro, the standard sorting is by date. I don't like this particularly, so I usually just sort everything by file type. This gives a much better overview of the media that is contained in a project. Now let's import everything. So I'm going to the backup folder. And here we can just select everything and import selected. I usually leave the files in place so they don't get copied to the Final Cut Pro bundle, and I do analyze for balance color, and I remove the silent channels as well. Those are the 2 most time-consuming processes while importing, but I know that I later have to balance the color anyway, and so it's a good idea to do this from the get-go. Once this is done, you can see in the background tasks window that it is now analyzing all the files, and I'll come back when this is finished. So now that the analysis has finished, we can look at the templates that I put into our project, into the template. There are 2 project templates. One is for the thumbnail itself that's going to be displayed on YouTube before you play the clip. And the way it works is basically you have 2 custom titles here, one for the episode number and one for the episode title, and then you can just use save current frame to export an image that you can upload to YouTube. The other thing that we have is basically the production template containing the videos that you're going to see in the podcast later. But the first thing that I do before I do get any actual work done, I rename the template files to our current production. So currently we are working on UC XXX. And the next thing that we're going to do is we've got this video track from each person, and we've got another audio track, but this one is recorded with a nicer microphone, and we need to sync up the audio tracks with the video files. So select one of the audio files, select one of the video files, right mouse button, synchronize clips, or Option Command G. Then just hit OK and wait a little. And I'm going to do this for the remaining clips as well. So now that is all done, we can work on the project a little more. First, let's make some room where we can get our work done. So I move to the end of the project. You can either use the up or down arrow keys to move the playhead from one clip end or start to the next clip end or start. And this is very comfortable to maneuver the project you're currently in. You can also use the home or end buttons to quickly move to the project beginning or end. Once you're at the project end, you can insert a gap clip from the edit menu, because that's what we're going to need right now. You can either stretch it out by hand, or you can select the clip and hit Control D, and just type in any length you want. So 10 minutes sounds cool. You can use Shift Z to fit the project in the timeline. This even works when effects are shown on the right hand side, or anything else for that matter. And it works also the other way around. It always just fits the project on the screen. So now let's move our playhead a little further behind. The synchronized clips are listed in no data, and you can either drag them down individually, which I would recommend, or you can select all of them, hit Q, W, or E. Let's just hit Q. And you can see why I'm usually not recommending this, because it just added them right after another, not like on top of each other, like they were supposed to be like, and the way they would have been useful like. So they're also not in the right order. As you can see from the production template, we have me, Sven, and Patrick, and it's a little flipped. So just select one clip, hold down the Shift key. When the Shift key is down, you can move a clip up or down, but not left and right, as you can see right now. So we just move it down, and because we held the Shift key down, it still has the same position in the timeline. But there's more that we're gonna need. We need the effect track from Patrick, and we need some reference track. And usually I just take one of the Skype backup recordings. And in this case, I am really, really lucky, because all of us each recorded one of those backup tracks. So if everything goes horribly, horribly wrong, I still had at least one backup track to work with. So that's kind of cool. Because we're using synchronized clips, we can get rid of the original microphone track that's coming from the inside MacBook. When I deactivate it, you can see the waveform updating. This is now a little bit quieter, but also less noisy, and I just do that for all clips individually, or you can select all of them and then just enable the connected tracks from the menu as well. To zoom in, just hit Command plus or minus, and you can use the V key, to disable or enable clips. This even works. I think the shortcut is meant to be visual, so it's not visual and this visual, and it even works for audio tracks, which are then visual or not visual, of course, obviously, duh. So let's just get rid of these tracks. And typically there's like one thing you have to make sure of at the beginning of a podcast production, and that is that the clips are semi-synchronized to a clock, at least at the beginning. And the way I do this is I find one position in each clip that is somewhat defined in the podcast. Usually it is the introduction, because when there's like the start of a podcast, everybody introduces themselves and says hi. And as soon as they say hi, I've got something to work on their audio tracks. So I take that as a reference for syncing up all the video tracks. And I just I'm just going to find each one of these introductions here in the video file, and I'll get back to you when I have news. So Patrick says, welcome to our podcast right around here. Just park your playhead there and hit the M key. This creates a new marker that we can later use to scroll to. Let me continue to do this with the remaining clips. So now I have 4 markers on each of these tracks. Patrick here is already put perfectly, or almost perfectly, I should say, because as you can see, I just need to move it a little bit further down the road, and it's going to line up with the marker that I created with my reference track. And you see that it displays this yellow line. This is because snapping is on. You can turn off snapping by pressing this button, or snapping, like the N key on the keyboard turns off this snapping mode as well, which you can see right now. So they line up, and now we just need to check whether the audio is in sync as well. Let's just listen in briefly.
Willkommen bei der Übercast, der Bein.
And it actually sounds pretty good, so we just keep it like that. The only thing that we now need to do is the effect track has started with Patrick's track, so all we need to do is move the effect track a little bit further behind so it lines up with Patrick's normal audio track, and my clip is still positioned correctly. And so we have 3 clips done in one go, and all we need to do is line up Sven's clip.
Ja, aus Stuttgart.
So you can hear that here we have a slight bit of delay. This is normally not supposed to happen, so we need to move this a little bit further behind. Let's just listen again. So we're still wrong, so maybe around here. You can use your playhead to check whether the waveform aligns with the audio track with the reference audio track, and you can use the comma and period key to move 1 frame left or right, or shift, comma and period to move 10 frames at a time. And here we have the same kind of audio effect. It needs to phase out a little, and then it's fine. So we now know everything is lined up correctly. We can turn off the reference track, and we know the podcast starts here. So all we need to do, select everything, cut. Command B that was. And we know that the podcast ends somewhere here. Usually, I just need to zoom in here. And you can see from the configured clip appearance, Sven's video ends right around here, but Patrick's ends right around here. So it's quite safe to say that the podcast ends around here. And let's just listen in.
Wir sind raus und kaufen uns jetzt alle.
Couple of editing shortcuts here as well. So you press K to stop playback, L to play forward, J to play backward. You can hold down the K key and then press J to move 1 frame left, or L, and hold down the K key to move 1 frame right. So this was L, and this was J. When you press J or L twice or 3 times, you increase the playback speed in that direction. So let me press L 3 times. So this was 4 times the speed, And now let me press J 3 times. So that's how you move quicker through your project. Normally I listen at 2 times the normal speed. So here we still enjoy ourselves, and I know this is where the podcast needs to end. Right around there. Just select everything again, Command B. And there we have another editing clip. Let me also cut the gap clip because we're gonna need that when we export our first version of our podcast. So the next thing that we're gonna do is we apply this audio effect, or the video effect. I could have done this before, but it doesn't really matter when you do this in the process. It's just important that you do this in the process. So you just hit Command C on the original clip, then you select the resulting clips. Let me make them, let me disable them. Let me make sure all these are enabled and shown on the screen. So here you can say paste attributes, or the shortcut is Shift Command V. This brings up this menu where you can paste only the effects, position, and scale. Paste. And now it has the correct position, scale, and the correct effects applied to it. Let's do the same for Sven. And Patrick. So that's it. Now we are almost ready to export our first version of the podcast. Let's just also enable the effect track and select one of the gap clips in the main storyline. The next tool that we're gonna use is the range selection tool. This tool is pretty cool because it allows you to, well, create a selection of a range. But when you go to the export menu or the share menu, it's going to use the selected range to export. So that means we just need to click this gap clip once. We have created a range selection. We can export a master file. And the first time around, we want to export audio only. Next. Then we want to export video and audio. Go. And that's it. Obviously, I've done this in the past already. And normally I would just go ahead and upload this first version to our own private podcast. So just Sven and Patrick can have a listen and I can have a listen, so we can find the parts that we really need to edit out of the podcast. But let's move on with the podcast production. Normally there's like a shout out or takeout at the beginning. Let's just say that I figured out that this part here is just ideal. No, let's say this part here is ideal for our outtake. And after we've exported this first version, normally I would also go ahead and name this version 1. I create the next version with Command D, open that. And now, because we've got a backup basically, we can just throw everything away that we are not needing in this process anymore. So we need the outtake. I can just move it to the beginning. I can delete this and I can delete this. All right, sounds good. Then we can select these clips here and these two and move them in. But we don't need these 3 anymore. And the logo itself, we already learned how to move down. Just hold down the Shift key and everything moves out of the way. we can get rid of our gap clip now, because you can see that there are no clips attached to it anymore. These clip connectors here don't seem to be attached to the gap clip anymore. So when I delete it, nothing is gone. So we have made a little room here as well. And to extend an edit, like to lengthen a clip, like with a shortcut, you just press, well, first you have to select a region border, a clip border, and then press Shift X to extend the edit to the part where you are. And when the audio form has rendered, we're going to see that the video audio form lines up with our outro audio form. But let's work on the intro first. We need to move in these clips a little bit more so that they line up with the intro. And we also need to move these a little further in so they line up here. So now that the audio form has finally rendered, we can also have a listen if everything sounds nice as well. So it doesn't sound as nice, it's a bit too loud. So we can just move this guy a little bit further in and have a listen again. Okay, still too loud. Just still a little bit further, but you get the drill. So I don't have to show this in detail. So let's move to the end of the podcast and basically do the same thing. We are here. Again, I could just use the up or down arrow keys. Shift X, Shift X. Have a short listen.
Und kaufen uns jetzt alle ein Wahl Lithium-Ionen Plus. Peng!
So, you probably don't know a lot of German, but it sounds very good to me. So now all we need to do is like extend the main storyline clip a little bit further out. Take our outtake, just move it right in front of the outtake. Sorry. And so all we would need to do now is just have a listen here and there and check if everything is alright. But this is basically the entire podcast. I usually take care of some of the audio next. Here you have some audio enhancements, as they are called. I usually do a little bit of loudness, but not too much, just right around 30%. And also do some background noise removal, but also not that much, just 20%. And in a couple of seconds you can see the audio waveform updating as well with that new information. And right now we would be done with the audio. Normally I put on an EQ for each of us, but I'm not going to do this for this particular demonstration. The only thing that I want to show next is you can see that the audio tracks are pretty much aligned to each other, but Patrick's is a little bit too quiet. And I know that I have to increase the volume here. So when you hold down the command key, you can increase the audio level much more precisely, and you can just do 3 dB plus, and now you can see that the audio levels line up much more closely to each other. And that's basically it. I mean, for the audio production or video production itself. So all I would do next is I will go ahead and export again the audio file and the video file. And obviously for this demonstration I've done this already. So once this is all done, I can use the audio file and put it in Levelator, which I've done already as well. And then I put this audio file into MP3 processor in Amadeus Pro, which I've done already as well. And now that we can work with these two files in terminal, because we are going to use FFmpeg on the command line to use our new levelated improved audio in the exported video track. And the way we do this is by using a functionality in FFmpeg. Let me just use -e. The first -e is our video file. The second -e is our improved audio file. And in FFmpeg, you can map inputs to tracks. So you can say map the zeroth input to the video track. That's why the V is here. So the video file is going to be used for the video track, but we're not going to use the audio track of that input, the zeroth input. But instead we're going to use the audio input from the first input as audio track. And we're not going to recompress everything. No, instead we're just going to copy the audio track and the video track in the new file. So I just say, I keep MOV and I just say version 2, hit go. And here you can see this now renders at around, I don't know, 9,000 frames per second. So it's really, really fast, because all FFmpeg is doing is it's just copying the codecs from the original file into the final file. This is the final file, and I would upload this to YouTube and this to our podcast. And this is how the Übercast is done. I hope you enjoyed the screencast. Let me know what you think in the comments, like and subscribe. See you again next time. Bye!